Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guest, Daunne Alexander and Dr. Robert Verkerk. I should say the texts are broken, so I'm sorry. We've tried to fix it. We had a few in at the start. I never even read any of those out, and then it all went... Anyway, sorry. Robert, if we can get back to you. Human rights. We were talking about human rights before the break. What can we do?
Well, one of the difficulties is that we see a sort of multiple level of loss of individual and national freedoms and rights. And what seems to be happening globally is that sovereignty is being lost into larger trading blocs. We've seen this very significant change happen within the European Union. If you look across the other side of the Atlantic, we see more and more efforts now to create
the North American
Union
and the Amero,
and we see the ASEAN countries, and the business systems that are evolving, the trade systems that are being controlled by a semi-private club, the World Trade Organization, is about how you can create trade between these massive trading blocs.
It's supposed to be about free trade, isn't it?
It is, and one of the issues in terms of barriers to trade is creating a situation that tries to balance free trade together with consumer protection.
Regulation.
Yeah. So you've got this double-edged process which is turning out to be a pretty permissive situation for companies that want to, say, trade hormone-treated beef around the world. And of course, we've seen a huge dispute of more than 10 years standing.
And GMO crops in the UK.
And GMO crops. We've seen this extraordinary shift towards GMO. It was 1996 that the first GMOs were planted outdoors. And now we've seen a situation where 85% of animal feed in Europe is GMO. And
so even if you're not eating GMO, the animals you are eating GMO, and that's affecting them in ways that
all the European
we
cheap
don't really
meat,
understand, perhaps.
All the European cheap meat that isn't organically certified is being fed largely on GMO feed. And of course, the GMO regulations stipulate that if the food is directly for human consumption, it must be labelled. But there is no labelling requirement for the food that we eat that is animal tissues that have been fed with GMO feed.
Shouldn't there be such a...
Well, we believe, of course, if you believe in informed consent, yes, it should be labelled. And of course, there's very much a scientific debate as to what happens to trans genes, genetically modified genes, that have been consumed by an animal. Do they move through the gut into the bloodstream and into the animal tissues that we then eat or not?
And to its children.
Precisely. Now, we're in the middle of some research on this very subject, and we'll be releasing probably in a month our findings. What I will tell you for the time being is that the primary research that shows that there is no horizontal transfer of these genes into other species comes directly from major corporations like Monsanto, and studies that have been funded directly by biotech companies. If you look at the independent scientists that have been looking at this...
We're sure they wouldn't tell lies.
Well, this is there's very good evidence, published evidence to suggest that as much as 60% of published science may be false.
Okay. And you've got a website, haven't you? Let's read out your website again. It's anhcampaign.org.
Correct. That's we're an international
Alliance for Natural Health. That stands for,
we're a campaign of doctors and scientists and lawyers that come together with consumers to ensure that we're able to allow natural and sustainable systems of healthcare to develop. Our primary modus operandi is good science and good law. We feel there's been significant distortions of both science and law to create a situation that doesn't benefit the individual, nor does it develop many independent traditions and cultures.
Okay, I do have to put on my devil's advocate hat here, though, and say one of the arguments that they will use, I'm sure, is that we don't want to go back to the days of snake oil salesmen. You know, the fair would roll into town, and somebody would stand, some huckster would stand on a box and say, you know, this is snake oil that used to be in America. I don't know what it used to be here, but some amazing compound that will cure everything.
Yeah.
And of course, there are con men in the world, and they will try and sell this stuff.
I'm with you all the way, although I probably differ slightly because snake oils can be very interesting. But there are cowboys in every industry, and one of the reasons we use an approach of good law, we're not anti-regulation, we're just anti-bad regulation, and what we believe in doing is helping to positively shape regulation that works for everyone.
So you would still help clear out the snake oil salesman?
Absolutely. And there are many elements of regulation developing in different parts of the world. If you look at Australia, they have a licensing system for all their natural health products that actually works. They have a licensing system for Chinese medicines that actually works. In Europe, we have a system that doesn't work.
So could Daunne sell her products in Australia?
She would have to go through a licensing system. She would need to submit data that the Australian authorities would probably be a whole lot more interested in than the authorities have been in the UK.
And then, if it was licensed for sale in Australia, could she then sell it by mail order elsewhere, perhaps to the UK?
At the moment, the laws on food supplements relate to those products that are marketed and sold within the European Union. What's beginning to happen now, in order to so-called protect consumers, that they're looking at putting increasingly stringent controls in at borders to prevent products that are not allowed within the European even getting through the border controls. And a lot of products a lot of US products are currently being rejected at the borders if they come in containers that can be rattled around so they sound like tablets or capsules. And so that efforts are definitely being stepped up to interrupt the flow of products at borders now.
Okay, so the answer is no then. So Daunne couldn't sell her products in Australia, and somebody in England...
In time, because of the issue of, if you like, a manipulated view on consumer protection, it will become more and more difficult unless there is a radical change in the regulatory regime. And some of that may well happen if there are successions of very well-conducted legal challenges that try and create a fairer environment for everyone.